Yo, what's up? Kobe Cheese here with another one of my champion first impression videos, this time Viktor. And the interesting thing about Viktor is that they did some changes on their designs for a caster. And at first it feels like you're a Swain, but without regeneration and less single target damage. He actually came across pretty weak when I first started playing him, but after several games he feels a lot stronger and stronger and stronger. And then once I got the hang of how to use all of his abilities in conjunction with each other, he's not bad at all. He won't be the most intuitive for everybody, but with some practice, he can be quite a strong champion. I don't know if he's going to be the most competitive or like a first pick or anything of that nature, but I can see him be a strong pick for some people who take the time to learn how to use him properly. Now, Viktor doesn't have the best one-on-one fighting abilities or nuking capability like some other mages do, but he is a great player in team fights and has some really amazing control. So I tell everyone, I think he's more of a control champion. Now, the augment is a bit of an annoyance. His passive puts an item in your inventory and you can't get rid of it. So it does take up that extra item slot and you're not going to have room for more wards or in-game items or anything like that. And there's nothing you can do. In addition to that, you have to pay for your passive effect. So I don't really like that idea, but it seems to work out fine overall. It's not a huge crutch to him. It's okay. So let's talk about some of his abilities. His power transfer is his Q. You'll pick that one up first. It's a pretty standard nuke. I didn't like that the shield came so much later after casting the ability. You usually want a shield placed on you right away when you cast it, but it was more of just an added benefit to doing damage, even though the range felt somewhat short on it. I actually maxed that first just because it is nice to have that easy nuke damage and that shield that comes back to you. You could technically max your death ray first if you're going to be going for a death ray build, but I feel like the Q is a more consistent and more reliable source of damage. Your gravity field, which is your W, is probably the worst of his abilities just because of how hard it is to use. I'm sure with the augmentation it makes it a lot easier to land, but I wouldn't really want to waste an augmentation to make the gravity field longer range. Actually, you can see here I've got a picture of the extra range, and it's a decent amount of extra range, so that would be nice for controlling team fights a little bit better. In any case, though, his specialty is actually going to be in team fights, and it's great when you're using it to block off exits or to zone people out from attacking you when you're going in for creep kills and that sort of thing. Now, his death ray, which is his E, was very difficult for me to get used to at first, and I still miss it a few times. If you're used to using Rumble's ultimate, it actually works similar to that in the way the targeting is. However, with practice, you're going to get this thing mastered, and the extra range on it makes it great for poking people down. You're not going to be able to give a minion wave until much later in the game when you have more ability power, or if you've augmented for the damage on the death ray. But watching the death ray do its work is oddly satisfying. It's really cool to check it out. The targeting is similar to Rumble's, but it also gives you the vision of the area that you hit, so you can use it strategically to check out bushes and see if people are there, or attack people over walls and that sort of thing. Now, finally, is Chaos Storm. Now, that one's actually very powerful. At first, I was like, it doesn't seem that great, but the silence is a great added benefit. It does remind me of an Annie Tibbers because it has a big initial damage burst and an AoE, and it's got its own AI to it, so it'll actually target, I think, just the closest person to it, and it'll start chasing them, doing decent amount of damage to them and following them around. It's also easy to control. You can just click your ability again, and it'll go to wherever you click. So it's a pretty nice damage ability. You can throw it down and use your Q and then your death ray combo, and you're just going to burst people quite nicely. Obviously, it's not going to blow people up as if you're Annie, but again, he's more of a control champion. You're not going to be using this spell to just completely instigate people. You're going to have more health than most other casters and more ability to kite people around and do that AoE damage and control in team fights that really helps the rest of your teammates do the work that they need to do. Alright, at first when I was playing Viktor, I could hardly tell what the hell I was doing in team fights, just because the or the death ray is a lot harder to use than most other abilities, since you have to target it correctly, and then your gravity field, you have to figure out how to place that down in the most optimal situation, and then you got to control your ultimate so it's actually targeting somebody, because if it's just sitting there and it's not hitting one, it's useless, obviously. But after a while, after getting used to using all the abilities correctly, it was actually pretty cool. Everything really comes together, and you can do a lot of work in team fights once you get used to it. Early game poking, you really want to get good at using your power transfer into your death ray combo. This can do some deceptively large damage if it's done correctly. Now, it's obviously going to be harder to get both off on long range or smarter players, but occasionally you'll be able to. At worst, you can use your death ray and put that off on max range to snag some people with a bit of extra damage. It's got an amazing range if you use it right outside of the circle and then zap it outwards. So that's really nice. The gravity field, that one's going to be nice to be using to zone people off from attacking you when you're trying to walk in to an area to, say, help a teammate out and someone's coming from a bush. You can throw it down there and it's going to basically force them to not walk into that, obviously. Or you can place it down if you're low health and you can't take trade from someone else in your lane and you want to go and zap a couple of minions, you can throw that down to keep people from walking up to you. It's best used against melee champions who want to jump on top of you, and then it's just your zone of safety for a short amount of time. Now try to use your initial ultimate on top of a squishy or to cancel any channeling ability since it does have that short silence duration on it. Remember that it's not your job to take out the tanks. You have to blow up the high priority targets on Viktor if you want to do your job correctly. So wait for either their carry or the enemy mage and then place down your ultimate onto them, and that's just going to freak them out because they got this cloud of zapping action and most people are going to try and run away from it or something like that, and that's what you want people to do. So I feel that the way you want to build Viktor is going to be not to get your augmentation until a little bit later in the mid game, just because I don't feel the cost of it at 1200 is necessarily worth getting right away. What I like to do in Viktor is I'll pick up a boots 3-pot to start with the lane. I'll go for a Doran's ring, and then I'll build into sorcerer boots, and that's a great start for him. I tried out different amounts of Doran's rings, but since you do have that slot taken up by your augmentation, I say that's good enough. And what I'll do is pick up the Sorcerer Boots, and then I'll go into a Riot's Crystal Scepter, and then I'll pick up my augmentation. Now, as far as augmentations are concerned, I first tried out the augmentation on his power transfer, which gives you that extra speed. And this is actually really cool. You can kite people around like crazy, just running around. People can't catch up to you that well. But after playing him several more times, I tried out the augmentation on my Death Ray to give me the extra 30% damage, and it's quite nice to have that extra damage as well as the additional ability power from that augmentation. So overall, once you get used to Viktor, I'd say start going for the big damage nuking Viktor build, and if you're just starting out, you can try out one of the first 2 augmentations, and that'll help you stay alive longer and that sort of thing. But you'll probably find a playstyle that you like the most. Personally, I like the extra damage on Death Ray, even though I enjoy kiting, but with the slow on Rilays, I feel like that's good enough control for me. Now, for your runes and masteries, I'll do a standard mastery setup for any caster, just the full damage. 2109, and then on runes, instead of going full ability power runes, what I do is I'll pick up my yellows and my blues. I'll get mana regeneration runes, and then I'll pick flat AP and then magic pin for my reds. And he's got okay stats on his abilities as far as ability power is concerned, but not enough to merit me wanting to give up that early game benefit of having the mana regen. Since I only get 1 Doran's ring, I do feel like I need an extra amount of regeneration, and so having that regeneration on your runes is going to help you last longer in the lane, and you're not going to be losing out a lot since his base damages are pretty decent until you start picking up that extra AP later on into the game. So as for the build that I actually use for him, what I'll do is I'll take the boost 3 pots, of course, to start, into the Doran's ring, and then I'll go for a Sorcerer Boots into a Riot's Death Cap. And as far as what I build first of the Riot's, I do the Giant's Belt first because I want that extra survivability. After that, I'll augment into whatever augmentation I feel like doing, and then I'll go for the Death Cap after that augmentation. If you got really late game, you can probably go for like a Will of the Ancients or Zanya's Hourglass. It just kind of depends on what your enemies are building, what you need based on your team comp and that sort of thing. Double AP is a great reason to do the Will of the Ancients type of setup and that. That's just some of the options that you have. So overall, in the end, I want to stress once again, I think that Viktor can actually be a pretty strong champion. He does require a little bit of practice to get him down. And as far as competitive picks, not sure about that one. There's a lot of other choices out there right now that might be better off. However, Viktor is pretty fun to play once you get him down. But that's it for today. If you want to watch more first impression videos of champions, definitely subscribe to my channel because I do first impressions of every new champion, and I'll probably be doing existing champions, guides and spotlights on every other odd off week and that sort of thing. So I'll see you guys around for the next one. Please hit the like button if you did enjoy this video and it did help you make a decision on whether you would like to play Viktor. And I'll see you around for the next one. This is Kobe Cheese. Peace out.